Shall we begin?
This is the Drunken Fist Podcast with your hosts, David Bordeaux and Justin Plavick. This podcast is made possible by the fans of the show. For more information, visit drunkenfistpodcast.com/fans. All right. So I started drinking this Edmund Fitzgerald Porter, and I don't like it. And I have to start by saying I don't like it. It's a dark beer. I love porters and stouts, but oh God. And I really want to like these Ohio beers. And I've had a couple of them that I really do enjoy, but this Great Lakes Brewing Company, Edmund Fitzgerald Porter, what in the hell were you thinking? Ugh.
I'm so upset with you.
Well,
that's okay. There's no better one I got. Let me see here. There we go. I haven't had one of these since college. Let me give it a sip. Hold on.
You haven't had a beer since college? That's adorable.
No. Yeah, we'll go with that. Oh, that's awful.
See? All right. So we know how
it's a Miller Lite. Miller, you could try and send a sponsorship all the time. I will never say anything nice about your beer.
Great Lakes Brewing. Fuck, man. I don't know.
Ooh, okay.
Great Lakes.
I'm going to put that down for a second. That was a big sip.
Great Lakes Brewing. Please send us something that will make me think otherwise. I heard Nosferatu from an undisclosed source is really good. So Great Lakes Brewing, if a Nosferatu ends up our way, hey, we might talk about it on the show.
And Great Lakes, don't be too mad at David because I actually love that Edmund Fitzgerald.
Oh God, fuck!
I remember liking that one because after you said porter, I'm like, oh, I had that one. That's a good one. I don't like their shit. What is it called? I don't remember. It's a golden beer.
I don't know. I've tried. Yeah, we've talked before, and I actually in the last episode we've even talked about it. I've drank Great Lakes Brewing before, and I know that I did not appreciate them. So, and I can't even. I do know that I drank the Burning River one, and I can't tell you if I liked it or not. But for whatever reason, like my brain, I want to like it just because of the Burning River. That shit's funny. But anyway.
Oh, Dortmunger. I hate Dortmunger.
Dortmunger. What's that?
Oh, it's a lager. Well, I mean, I don't like lagers to begin with. That's probably why I don't like Miller Lite. But
isn't Miller Lite a Pilsner, though?
Oh, is it? I don't know. Yeah, a fine Pilsner, a beer. That's what it says.
Jesus, man. How are you going to be a host on the Drunken Fist podcast and you don't know your alcohol?
Look, I drank like Guinness and gin. That's about it.
Okay, so you have no experience. Got it. Duly noted.
Minus the stuff I had.
Oh, God.
And got so
horrible.
We just blacked out on that one.
Okay.
Anyway.
Okay, so this show. The show is not about drinking nasty porters or nasty pilsners. This show is about, what are we talking about, Justin?
What are we talking about? Oh, martial arts.
Yeah. That's kind of our thing. That's what we do.
You mean what we're talking about today?
Yes, this episode. What is this episode about, Justin?
Okay. Well, I will let you know. Well, I was thinking that today.
Thank you.
Actually, here, just stop it. We'll talk tomorrow.
Okay. All right. Well, everybody, thanks for listening.
No, I'm kidding. Today we are going to be talking about both me and David's best martial artists we've ever met in our life and our worst martial artists we ever met in our life.
Okay.
And
go ahead.
If I know David, which I think I do, we actually might have the same worst person.
All right. Well, hold on. So let me understand the criteria of which we're talking. Is it the best and worst that we met in person? Is it the best and worst?
Yes, it has to be in person.
Okay.
I mean, if you want to like bend it a little bit, if you want to just talk about someone, that's fine.
If I want to make stuff up. Okay.
Yeah, if you want to just talk out of your ass, that's totally fine.
All right.
But it would be more reasonable for people we've actually met.
All right. So we at least know the criteria is somebody that we have met. Now, is this somebody that we've actually worked with in martial arts, or is this somebody that we just know that they're a martial artist and we either think that they're awesome or not? What further criteria do we have here?
I would prefer you've had to have some sort of contact with them, martial arts related.
Okay, martial arts related.
But again, if you want to talk out of your ass, no one stop it.
I might have to, because this porter is shit. I have no idea. I have no idea how that relates to that, but I'm not going to blame it on the porter, man. Fuck.
Yeah, that was a little random, but it's all right. That's what our listeners want,
or not. We'll see. We'll see a couple episodes in to see if after the first one they just stopped listening. Okay, so all right. So the best martial artist and worst martial artist.
Yeah, let's start with the best first, and you go first.
How about we do the worst first, and that way we end.
You want to do worst first?
We'll do worst first, and then we end on a good note.
All right, that's fair. Okay. You're very optimistic. I'm very pessimistic. Go for it.
Ah, shit. All right. So, what would you like to know about the worst martial artist? Okay, hold on. So, martial artist.
What's just your worst experience you've had with a martial artist? How about let's do that?
Fuck experience. Okay, so a student or an instructor?
I got stories for days, so I'm just letting you do your thing.
Oh, God. All right. Well, fortunately, I don't have many experiences of really bad martial artists. So yeah, I don't really have many really bad martial artists to really pull from here. So, okay, so yeah, I guess the example of
don't say names.
No, I'm not. I'm not going to say names. It's like I feel bad because on one hand, I can understand where this individual is coming from, and on the other hand, the way that this individual presented, fuck it, I can't say him or her because I'll get confused and I'll eventually say it. But so it's a gentleman, it's a him. The way that he presented himself was not appropriate, and the reason. Okay, I don't know. I don't really have. It's hard to talk about somebody in a negative way, or a negative experience. But essentially, the reason why this person was one of the worst martial artists I've met was due to the fact that they or that he. I don't know. This is hard, man.
I'm challenging you. Just go with it. Just say it, man.
Well,
I know you're trying not to leave a fingerprint, but let's be honest.
Well, okay. So here's the tough thing about this person is that this person has a questioning and an understanding and a wanting to know more about martial arts, very similar in the way that I do. And one-on-one or like in an informal setting, this person would have been a great person to work with because he wants to test things. He wants to challenge things. He wants to learn. And I completely respect that and appreciate that. The challenge comes is that when he would question and challenge and do whatever, he would do it in a non-professional way in front of my students. And I'm not talking about, I'm having a hard time because I do hear whatever I say, I hear it like it coming from your side. So I'm like hearing myself echo. So I'm going to move my headset a little bit so I can focus more on what I'm saying. So, okay. So here's the challenge is that when I would teach something and he happened to be off to the side because he was an employee of mine, and he did teach a different style of martial arts. The challenge that I had is that he would interject within my class, although he was not a part of my class, and talk about the pros and cons of whatever he thought that I was teaching, or he would question the validity of it, or not necessarily the validity of it, but hey, in this scenario, would it work? What would be better in this? And, again, if it was an informal setting and we were just hanging out and working to become better martial artists at that time, that would have worked great. And I love that because back when I was in Iraq, when I was at the House of Pain, which is the gym there in Taji that I worked with the 9 other guys that came from all different martial arts backgrounds, that's exactly what we did. We showed different techniques under different situations and we would test them. I mean, and it wasn't like a hardcore putting it through its rigors and stuff like that, but we tested it and we saw its benefits and we found where it didn't work. And then when we found when it didn't work, okay, what would work best here? So I would really have appreciated to have that experience with this person in that kind of setting, but it always seemed to come up whenever class was going in a formal setting. And it was just so distracting. The students, I mean, it's like he would interrupt the class. The students wouldn't know who to listen to or what was going on because of his interjections and that. And in the one style of martial art that he's proficient in, he's really good. A lot better than me. Now, is he the best? No. And, that's obviously a subjective question. He's really good at what he knows, and he knows it pretty well. There's also another art that he does that he's, in my opinion, not that good. And that's where a lot of the challenges come up, is that other style that he taught is kind of related to the style that I was teaching at the time and still teach. I mean, I teach karate. I teach a couple of different versions or flavors of karate, if you will. And the one martial arts style, and I'm doing my best to leave it out because I don't want to, not only name names, but make it very obvious. But the one style that he was proficient in, that was similar to mine, he really didn't know what he was doing. And like he could tell you he can show you how to do the moves, but he didn't understand why the moves were being done. He didn't understand. He just didn't understand the system. He could go through the movements, he can go through the motions, but he didn't understand the heart of it and the core of it. Now, his other martial arts style, he did, and was really good at that. So that was, I guess that's like my biggest example of my experience with my worst martial artist that I've experienced. Now, I've met others and they've had challenges, but a lot of them weren't martial arts related. They had to do with life situations, drug abuse and physical abuse and like really bad things in life, which did affect them as a martial artist and their experience of martial arts in general. So I'm not considering them. What I am considering is this individual, because not only was he an instructor, and I think he still is an instructor. Not only is he an instructor, he taught 2 different styles of martial arts. One he really knew very well. Another, apparently he knew enough to be licensed or whatever to teach, but he didn't know the heart of it. Okay, cool, great. That's fine, I guess. But let's learn and grow as martial artists outside of when I'm teaching class. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that does make sense.
All right, so that's my example. And again, like the reason why I consider that individual like the worst martial artist is because he's an instructor. So I hold instructors to a higher level. I mean, me being like, I am a kindergarten through 8th grade physical education teacher. So not only am I a martial arts instructor, I'm also, an educator in that way. I'm a fitness instructor. I'm a personal trainer. So I teach and coach in a variety of different ways. I also do public speaking and blah, 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 blah. And also being a veteran, so you have with the military background, there is a time and place for certain things. And being a martial arts instructor, I would expect him of anybody to understand that. Now, if my students were questioning techniques and really challenging me like, hey, well, what if I do this or in this, I get that and that's fine. And I am that student. So if you challenge me in that way, I might have some time constraints because of class, but I appreciate that and I love that. But when you're a martial arts instructor who's not even in the class or a part of the class and you interrupt trying to, I don't know what. I mean, I don't really know the reasoning. I really hope, and I'm going to hold the optimistic view of this. I really want to believe that he was doing this to better himself. And, of course, there's going to be some times where he might know a technique that would work better than what I was showing. And, I'm going to kind of rib like, yeah, well, how does that work? And I get that. But while I'm teaching, that's not the time to do it. So those are the reasons why I would say that he is probably the worst martial artist that I have experienced outside of other people that have had life experiences that interfered with them. Does that make sense? I know I just asked that, but does that make sense?
No, I'm picking up what you're laying down.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm picking up my beer right now to take a sip. So I guess this is your turn to tell us what your worst martial arts person or experience is, or whatever the subject is.
Yeah, just take a sip. I got this. Oh, that Pilsner's awful. Anyway.
God, this porter is not much better.
Well, hey, it does the job. Let me see, the worst martial artist I've come across, and I'll explain later. I mean, like, no one's perfect, and I was probably the same way when I was younger. But this man seems to be an adult when I met him. I'm like talking late, probably 30s, 40s. I don't know which, never asked his age, but you ever see Bad Boys 2?
Maybe, but I don't remember it.
There's an amazing quote where there's a kid taking, it's Will Smith's friend, what's his name? Shit, who's in it? Not Will Smith's kid, it's the other one. Anyway, it's the other guy.
Okay.
And the guy's 16 years old taking his daughter on a date, and he comes and knocks on the door and asks for her, and he goes, "How old are you?" And he goes, "Motherfucker, you look 30. So, guy was old. I recognize him as more of an adult than me. I don't know if I'll ever see myself as an adult too, so that's a problem.
All right.
But this person, I mean, I grew up on Japanese jiu-jitsu, and Japanese discipline is very, very specific and direct, and is probably universal, whoever learns a Japanese art. I've seen little spins on stuff, but the discipline seems to be pretty much the same from what I've seen from other people. I remember teaching a class, and this guy just coming onto the mat, literally almost pushing me out of the way and saying like, "Oh, but what if you do this instead?" And I'm thinking in my head, I'm like, I'm nowhere near that technique. We're just trying to do this simple little thing, bro. And by the way, if you have a question, ask me when I'm done talking. In any art, in anyone, you don't interrupt somebody.
Hold on. What was he, a student or what? Help me out.
Oh.
Maybe I misunderstood.
no, I don't want to give too much away, but no, he was not a student. He just also worked at that establishment.
Okay.
And this is fine because I've worked at a few dojos, so this could be anyone. And if you think it's you, you got some stuff to think about.
Hold on. It's not me. We've never worked together.
No, not you.
I know.
No, I mean like the people listening to this. Like
I know.
If you know me and you think it's you, think about it. Because maybe it is. But no, this guy was not a student, and I have no idea why he would hang back and watch my class other than just to interrupt it.
Okay.
And my best memory I've ever seen, like it was a brand new student. It was hilarious because even he recognized it. And he's like, there's 2 occasions the student asked me a question. You never asked me anything. And the student was like, was that okay to do? And I said, absolutely not. And there was another occasion where we actually were just in there early. That person happened to be practicing with his students. And same student came up to me. Now, this isn't me, so I can't get in trouble. But the same student came up to me and was like, is that a real art that he's doing? And I just looked at him and I just laughed my ass off. And I didn't say anything because I didn't want to be disrespectful. But that was the kind of person I was dealing with. It was just, I've never seen someone so rude and so intrusive on, my time like that. I got an hour every like 3 days or something like that. I don't even remember. And that was just the most invasive thing I've ever seen someone do. Like I've never seen anyone interrupt an instructor before of that caliber and then try and take over and teach something. I've never seen it.
Okay.
I was blown away. And like, I didn't even know what to say. I was like, what? I was godsmacked. I just was frozen. I'm like, is this person really just doing this right now?
So not only did he come over and question something, he started to try to teach or show something?
Yes. Yes, he did.
Okay. Now, I know,
it was nuts.
I know you said not to say who we're talking about, but what's really interesting is that our people sound like the same person. So let's just do this. and
don't go there, David. Don't do it. Let's not do this. Let's just leave it a blank.
And for the listeners, Justin and I were both in the same area at the same time, and there's really no way getting around this. So we both went to Bowling Green State University, and that means we also both lived in or around Bowling Green at the same time. And I'm going to have to talk to you off the air about this because I think it might be the same person. So rather than trying to understand who it is, let me ask you this. So what specifically do you feel was like the biggest reason, or like for me, the reason why that this individual was like the worst martial artist is because he interrupted class, which is not something that you do. He questioned teaching methods when he was not a part of a class, which is something that you don't do. And as an instructor himself, he worked for me. He worked for me. He was a part of the martial arts school that I was not a co-owner of. However, I worked for my old business partner, and it was at the school that I used to co-own with my business partner. But anyway,
were you like technically senpai over him? You were higher rank?
I was the head instructor. And
then that's ridiculous.
Yeah, not only was I the head instructor, I was the business director. I ran everything. So the idea of, whoa, that was loud. So the idea of interrupting my class was a negative thing. The idea that he's an instructor and my students know that he was an instructor was a negative thing. And then the questioning / challenging of the techniques that I was showing was a negative thing. Not the right time, not the right place kind of deal. So those are the reasons why, for my guy, he was a bad martial artist. What are the specifics? It's just, I mean, I'm asking it just so our listeners can kind of take away, in case they happen to come across these kind of things. What can they learn from our experiences? So what are the takeaways from your experience?
It's never happened to me before. It's only happened once. And when it did happen, like, the big thing that got me was just the disrespect. Like, one, I do believe he had completely different art background than I had. So it's like, and even when he did try and take over, even the students were like, that's not going to work. And that's not even me like trying to feed it into them. Like, yeah, it doesn't work. Right.
Right.
Like, I am very humble. I say nothing. If something doesn't work, I try to go back and fix it with the instructor I learned it from, kind of thing.
Sure.
So for even a student to be like, whoa, you just interrupted Sensei Justin. What the hell? And then I'm sitting there like with a face like, are you kidding me right now? So for me, it was just the absolute disrespect and inserting themselves when it was not an appropriate time. So I think almost absolutely similar, or if not the same to yours.
Gotcha. Okay.
Oh, Miller Lite, gross.
Oh, I can't even believe.
Don't sponsor us.
I don't think they will. I don't think you have to worry about that.
Oh, God, I hope not, because I can't say a single nice thing about it.
Well, I mean,
I love your aluminum cans.
I can't even. I don't know. This porter, this Edmund Fitzgerald is rough. Damn it. And I really want to appreciate Ohio breweries.
See, okay, Edmund, I'm not with you on that one. Don't listen to David. I love most Great Lakes except for that damn Dortmunger. God, I hate that shit.
All right, so we talked about our worst ones and the reason why they were our worst.
Yep.
So what are we doing now?
I think the next one was the best.
The best.
Best martial artist you've ever met in your life or worked with. You want to go first or me?
I'll go first just because I went first last time.
All right, keep the pattern.
I can't say that he was the best martial artist that I've ever worked with, but I can say it was one of the best martial arts experience that I had. And I attribute that to this individual. So I will use that justification to say that this is the person I'm going to talk about next, who's the best martial artist that I've experienced. And the situation was I was in Iraq, and I was in Iraq. Wrong kind of show. I was in.
David, get out of the rack.
I was in Iraq, and this individual was not part of the guys that I was training with at the House of Pain in Camp Taji. Although he was at Camp Taji, I had to do guard duty at an exercise facility. I don't remember what they called it, but and it was a 12-hour shift, and there was an individual that he was a contractor. So he wasn't part of the army. He was a contractor, and he worked there. And I don't remember like what he did outside of what we're about to talk about. But he took care of the gym in some way. But something that I saw when he was walking, I saw that he had Eskrima sticks, and I saw that, and I was kind of curious. And then I also saw him talking to some major, or no. It was a major. He was talking to a major. So I'm like, whoa, what's he got going on? And then when the major left, I talked to the guy, and I'm like, hey, what's up? And his main style of martial art is Dog Brothers stick fighting. He does,
Oh, nice.
yeah, he does have some Kali background, but his main area is, oh crap, it is, it's. I cannot remember the name of it. It's a form of stick fighting that's kind of like Kali, but it's like,
Harness?
no, it's not Arnis. And see, and this is where I'm having a challenge. It's like Tapi or Tapi Kiki or something. And I know I'm going to remember it later. Anyhow, so I was talking to him and he's like, how much do you know about Dog Brothers? And I'm like, oh, a little bit. And okay, so we started talking. And what was really nice about talking with him, and I didn't have too many opportunities because, well, he worked and I was on a 12-hour shift guarding the place. And, but one of the most profound, and it sounds so silly now to even say profound, because looking back and so many years have passed and I've had so many different experiences. It's like, duh. But at that time, I was still struggling with my karate roots. And what I mean by that, for those listeners who are unfamiliar with my martial arts history or past, I was big time. I did a lot in karate. However, the form of karate that I did, or at least the instruction that I got, didn't really, I don't know, didn't provide a lot of substance behind what we learned. I guess I don't know. I'm not trying to make my experience negative or the people that I train under negative, because that's not the case. It's just I didn't understand at that point. And I progressed a long while in karate, even with this type of, searching for truth and understanding in karate. Anyhow, so talking with this gentleman, we were talking about different aspects of stick fighting, and when it comes to weapons, I am not really a big weapons person. But however, I am a big fan of long stick, short stick, and whips. Now, whips have nothing to do with him. However, since he dealt with sticks, specifically short sticks, Eskrima, style, I really appreciated talking to him. And so we were talking. And I don't even know what the conversation, like how it got started or what it was about, but it came up with the idea of stances. And he might have even lent me a book, because I know at one point he had lent me a book, but I don't know if it was before this conversation or after. But anyway, we were talking and the idea of stances came up, and I was explaining in karate how we have different stances and paired up with different footwork in that. And he just had like this crazy look on his face. And I was like, I was concerned that maybe I said something inappropriate or I wasn't saying something correctly, but, so I asked him, and I'm like, what, I see that you have a particular look on your face, so I'm not quite sure what's going on. And he's like, the idea of stances doesn't make sense to me. And then he further explained that stances are just like a snapshot in time. To train on stances might make sense for a baby, if you will. Like if, you have to learn how to stand before you actually start moving. He's like, stances are just a snapshot in time. And when we were further discussing, he kind of essentially discovered that somehow or inadvertently, either through my training or just the way that I was thinking, that I was stuck at a baby phase, even though my training was far beyond. But even and anybody who's done karate in different in different styles, that you train stances even in advanced ranks in that. Of course, the further you go, you kind of stop doing that because it's kind of becomes second nature. It's like, okay, you've already learned that. But with his guidance, he started to show me even like the footwork that he does. And he's like, and if you stop here, this is the stance. But the key is knowing how to get from here which was, he was kind of showing the stance, and then he showed, he did some footwork, and then he paused briefly. He's like, to here, it's all about knowing how to shift the weight and movement. And in my training, a lot of the training was done in static stances, and just the way he explained it, and he just, like, that one comment actually unlocked so many other things way beyond stances. And then so I started asking him about this and that, and he's like, yeah. And he's like, yeah, you totally understand it. You just had that block. And I was like, oh my God. But the greatest thing about him, obviously the stance thing is a very specific thing to my experience. And, I don't really know how else to relate that to anybody who's listening. But what I can say, though, is that what really made him one of the best martial artists that I have personally experienced was that he was just down to earth. He didn't put himself above me. He didn't he didn't feel that my level of training was any better or worse than him. I mean, we talked as peers, and he really coached me through what I was experiencing and what I had experienced, even though that wasn't his job. I wasn't paying him to do that, but he coached me through these things, and it unlocked so much stuff that I already had, but apparently I didn't know. And because of that experience, that is what, it made a huge impression upon me regarding him as being one of the best martial artists that I've worked with, just because of his down to earth nature. He was very humble. He didn't put himself above me, below me. He didn't disregard my experience. He didn't elevate my experience. Just because we were from different styles. He worked to find common ground so we can, share a similar language when it came to martial arts. And that really is like a defining point in my martial arts experience. So that is my story. So what is your story of the best martial artist that you have experienced or worked with?
Man, I have so many. I'm probably going to have to ask you to do a part 2 on this later, but the one that comes to mind today is I was probably his worst martial artist you've ever met. Our conversation we had in the beginning, I would bet $1 million. When I was younger, I was nowhere near the martial artist I was today. I was pretty arrogant, and I would say douche comes to mind.
Really?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And
weird.
It took a lot of growing to realize, like, I need to chill out. But when I think it was around my first degree or my second degree black belt. I don't know. It was before my freshman year of college. I was like, hey, I'm going to try a new art. And I've dabbled in other arts before, but I'm like, I really need to like either start over or try something new. So I did Aikido for a couple of years. And I will never forget this person. He was the best instructor I've ever seen in my life. He was a 3rd degree in Aikido. And for that particular style, that's huge. Like, I know we meet people all the time in like certain arts that, a 3rd degree really isn't that much.
Right.
But for their particular style, they were an old school Ueshiba school. And I do remember them being like, you were either a white belt and that's it. And you worked there and you for like 5-6 years to become a black belt if you could do it.
Right.
And this guy worked his way up through the ranks, and he was just an amazing instructor. And I will never forget him because oh my God, I was such a douche. And, I would question stuff or be like, oh, this doesn't work. And, for people who see Aikido, some things look funny, but what Aikido really does have is amazing footwork. And they do understand the idea of moving someone's momentum. And I know that's what it's all about. And I'm sure there's way more to tell, but because I'm nowhere near an Aikido expert. But I will never forget his patience. And he never once made a comment to me. And this was the same people that I was talking to you about in our other episode we did before this, that we would go out to the bar and just talk. And
Right on.
I will never forget him. And I will never forget what a dork I was and how rude I was. But I think I needed that. I needed to look at someone else's eyes and be like, whoa. I mean, you could like tell, you can always tell when somebody doesn't want to be around you.
Mm-hmm.
And this guy didn't have that. Even though I could clearly tell I was being like pretty, I don't know if I was being disrespectful, but I wasn't necessarily being, open-minded either. So I will never forget him. And actually, I'll just say his name. I don't even remember his last name, but his name is Sensei Joe. Who knows where he is now? Because I know that Aikido dojo shut down a long time ago, and that's super sucky. But he moved around the same time that I stopped going to Aikido. And I think a big reason why I stopped was because he stopped going. And it had nothing to do with anything. It was just...
What city was that in?
Medina in Ohio.
Okay, so not the same guy that I was thinking. It's interesting because there is a gentleman with the first name Joe who might be a 4th degree Aikido sensei in the Toledo area, technically in Holland, Ohio.
Is he bald by chance?
Well, he's bald and he has a very long beard.
Oh, I don't know about the beard. Is he a little bit got tiny little bit of a belly?
No, rather slim.
Okay. Not the same guy.
No.
That'd been funny if it was.
Well, I mean, it's interesting because the characteristics that you were describing of this individual and even the first name, I'm like, whoa, what was this in Toledo? Well, I mean, the Toledo area, because the person that I'm thinking about, he had a dojo, an Aikido dojo in Holland, Ohio, which is just west of Toledo. It's a little suburb of Toledo. But I know people that have known him. I've never met the individual. And even his dad, I had the privilege of meeting his dad. And it's like, it's funny is his dad really loves the guy and respects him for what he does. And yet he still can't quite get over the long beard that he has. It's almost like a stereotypical kind of Asian martial artist kind of long beard. But yeah, I mean, it's just like listening to your story, it sounded like the same person. So for takeaways for our listeners, we obviously talked about the worst martial artists that we've experienced and what made them the worst martial artists. What's your takeaway for Sensei Joe then? What's the takeaway for what you understand or understood to be one of the best martial artists you've had the opportunity to experience?
Well, see, that's going to be my next point too. It wasn't even just him. It was entire dojo that was like that. The culture that he produced in that place, it was amazing. There were guys there that were slightly below his rank and in every right could probably go off on their own and start an Aikido dojo. And they just stayed there and kept learning. And I remember one guy, he was, I think the equivalent to what I can describe as a tank doing Aikido. And one time we got into a little tiff, a little sparring match. It was friendly. There was no argument or anything like that started it. It was super friendly. And we were just grappling a little bit, but I mean, he outweighed me by probably over 100 pounds. And we sat down in Seiza for the next, the lesson to happen. And a guy next to me was sitting there like, what are you doing? Don't do that. And I'm like, what are you talking about? He's like, dude, he's broken people's arms before on accident. Don't mess with him. And I'm like, dude, my whole life, I've always been a pushover. And honestly, he started it. I was just going along with it. And if I was going to get my arm broken by an amazing martial artist, that's literally not the worst thing that could happen on my list. And, I just remember the sensei kind of looking at us because he's trying to talk and I'm trying to look at the sensei while he's talking to me. And it's funny because me being who I was and, not like the best character traits of a martial artist, I'm actually trying to pay attention.
Weird. So you had negative character traits, and yet through martial arts, you have evolved. That's weird.
Yeah, I know. Isn't that weird?
All right.
But, I just remember Sensei Joe looking at him like, okay, it's time to shut up now. And like, cause I was trying to pay attention while I'm trying to ignore someone telling me not to mess with somebody who was messing with me. It's like, shut up.
Right.
But even he, like, not even talking bad about him, he was even awesome. Like, everyone was just so nice. So I think the takeaway is just like the culture that an instructor can make in an environment really makes or breaks something. I've seen so many dojos that were like, I wanted to be nowhere near a part of them because everybody was just a bunch of meatheads and we're extremely rude.
So what do you think makes a culture like? I mean, obviously the instructor, but I mean, like, what are some takeaways that we can look for or appreciate when we experience it based on that experience?
Feeling welcome. I mean, it comes down to like, I've seen, and I've tried my best to do it. I've tried to implement it and I've tried to, copy as much as I can. They always say like copying is the best form of flattery. And like wherever I see an amazing thing that works, I try my best to implement it, but where, it's my spin on things. And being able to make people feel welcome, I think is the key to getting people inside your doors. If you're going to be arrogant and, you're the master from the top of the Himalayas who studied with so-and-so, like that's not going to get people in your door. What's going to get people in your door is, I would say, becoming a close-knit family with everybody. I think everybody wants to search for that family of martial artists. And that's just my opinion. But I always look for the close-knit kind of people. So I look for people that I can remember as like, yeah, we were a little bit of a family at one point in time. Like I will always to this day say, you and me are martial arts brothers.
Right. With Sensei Joe, though, specifically, and kind of not looking at the culture in particular, what are the characteristics that you most valued that he exhibited?
I'm sorry, you kind of bleeped out there for a second. What'd you say?
I say with Sensei Joe, what are the characteristics that you most appreciated that he exhibited? Outside of the consideration of the dojo in general, but like with Sensei Joe, what are the core things that you can say just made him awesome?
Well, besides his skill, which I think is like, we don't even have to talk about that. His patience, his caring, and his ability to ignore bullshit. Because I know at that time, and I'm humble enough to admit it, like I wasn't like, again, I wasn't the best martial artist discipline wise. What did I have the skill? Maybe not. I don't know. I don't remember that far back. But his patience and his ability to just ignore bullshit was amazing. He was so understanding and all he wanted to do was teach Aikido. And from that day on, I'm like, that if I can be a quarter of the instructor he was, I'm doing something right.
All right. Very cool. All right. So after talking about our worst experiences and our best experiences, what are the core takeaways from this that you feel would be most important that our listeners remember or appreciate or take away from this?
For me, it's a loop around. So I think just be understanding, because the person that made me most upset in my martial arts career, when I look back on it and really think about it and admit it to myself and be honest, that was me at one point. Was I that bad to where, I mean, I've never interrupted a lesson. I will say that. But was I maybe not as maybe not as humble as I am now? Yeah, most definitely. So I think you just have to have that understanding and that reflection. So when you meet someone, maybe try to step in their shoes, regardless if they're great to you or bad for you. What do you think you can do for yourself to make things better based on what you see?
Right on.
Boom, drop that mic. Beer. Where's the beer? There we go.
Oh God. So for me, listening to our conversations and thinking about even like my experiences, I would have to say that the takeaway or the thing to kind of think about is the thing that made the worst experiences for both of us would be people that didn't understand the time and place for things. Also, people that maybe try to challenge or do things at inappropriate times. Again, I guess this is like the right time and right place kind of thing, to understand and appreciate that. And then reflecting upon the best people that we've worked with is like for your example, is the idea of doing your best to be open and understanding to the people that you are involved with or that you're working with. And in my example, doing your best to find relationships and find common ground so people can move forward. I mean, so you can move forward, so the people that you're talking to or interacting with or having an experience with can move forward, and to build that relationship. The idea of being respectful, I mean, because really that's what it seems like our worst experiences of martial artists have been, is just the complete lack of respect. And every situation is going to be different, and the idea of what's appropriate and not appropriate is going to be very different for each situation. But the idea of respect and working to find common ground, being respectful again, of the individual that you're with, that you are no better or no less than that person, and really caring for whoever you're working with or dealing with. I mean, even if you can't care for that person, if you can find something in common with them, focus on that and to move forward. That's really like what I've gotten from our conversation right now, is to, respect the appropriate times for things, be respectful in whatever situation that might mean, and to appreciate the person or people that you're with at that time, find common ground, and be present in the situation. Because when you're present in the situation, like for example, when Sensei Joe was dealing with you being maybe not the greatest person, he was present in that moment to either accept or to move on from whatever it is that maybe you were doing at that time.
Right.
So that, I think, is really kind of like what I get from what we were just talking about. Any last thing, any last whatevers that you would like to say before we wrap this up?
I'm actually pretty good. I thought that was a fun episode. We'll have to do a part 2 later down the road.
I don't know about part 2, but I definitely, this has definitely gone over 50 minutes. So I think this is quite the episode. So I have nothing else to say. So if you're good, then we're ready to wrap it up.
Yeah, just thank you, listeners. We can't do this without you.
Yes, thank you, listeners, if you're still there. We can't drink beer and chit chat with each other without you. Oh, speaking of that, listeners, if there's something that you would like for us to talk about, or if you have a question that you would like for us to answer, shoot us a message. You could go to drunkenfistpodcast.com. On there is on that website, there is a contact form. You can suggest a topic. You're like, hey, what are your thoughts on whatever? And we'll talk about it, or, ask a question and we'll answer it. Or if email is more your style, just go or send an email to fans@drunkenfistpodcast.com and let us know what's on your mind. Speaking of that, last episode, I said something ridiculous like this, so I think I'll say it again. Wherever you're listening to, however you're listening to us, whatever you're doing,
I think that beer's
whatever
kicking in.
not really. I mean, I finished that a while ago, and I'm really not a fan of this. But it's not about me nor the Great Lakes Brewing Company, which I'm sure makes some sort of fine beer somewhere. Anyway, wherever you're listening to us, take a photo. Turn around, get yourself a little selfie with your earbuds in, your headphones on, or whatever you're doing. Take a selfie or whatever. Take a picture of your toe. I don't care. And post it to Instagram. Tag us in it. Our handle on Instagram, Twitter, and what Facebook all happens to be at Drunken Fist Pod. That's POD. So yeah, just shoot it up on Instagram. Hey, tell us what you're doing while you're listening. Are you cutting the grass? Are you trimming your toenails? Are you thinking about changing dojos because of how awesome this podcast was? Whatever. Just go ahead and put that up there and let us know. Biggest reason? Ego. I mean, no, not ego. I'm curious to know what you're doing and in what ways that you're listening to us. So if you do that, that would be awesome. But that's just a personal thing. Yeah. So that's all. Blah, blah, blah. That's all for this episode of the Drunken Fist Podcast. Show notes, if we have any, they'll be available on the website at drunkenfistpodcast.com. Be sure to subscribe to the show. You can do that at Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, wherever great podcasts are provided. So yeah, please subscribe. And of course, this show is made possible by its fans. To learn more, visit drunkenfistpodcast.com/fans. And until we hit the mats again, thanks for drinking with us.
Bye.
Fucker.
Did it make it?
Yeah.